Welcome back. In today's Fame and Fortune, we're taking a look at the Golden Globe nominations. And once again, this seems to have been a theme here in the space. Netflix with a very strong showing. Here to break that down in Fame and Fortune for us is Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Canal. Ali?
Yeah, so it's been a very weird year for the award show so far. We're seeing that weirdness sort of trickle into all these nominations. And as you mentioned, streaming is really showing up at this year's Golden Globes, obviously accelerated by the pandemic. But we're now seeing this shift when it comes to streaming versus traditional TV. So if we take a look at the total nods, we have Netflix with a whopping 42 nominations. That is followed by Amazon Studios with 10, and then Hulu at 9. Now, I really want to focus in on the TV side here because personally, I think that's the most interesting, the most competitive. I think a lot of people have watched a lot of these series while in quarantine, and I want to kick things off with the comedies. So let's look at best TV series for a comedy, and we have some interesting choices here. We have Emily in Paris, which is a Netflix series. I was a bit surprised to see this. Also, The Flight Attendant, which is an HBO Max series. Hulu's The Great, Schitt's Creek, which is also available to watch on Netflix, and then Ted Lasso, which is on Apple TV Plus. Now, Schitt's Creek is one of the main shows here that everyone is going to be watching. They swept at the Emmys, winning all of the comedy categories. So that's certainly the front runner here. But you have to remember that the Golden Globes, they like to surprise you. So this could go to underdog Ted Lasso, which would be huge for Apple TV Plus. They have sort of fallen behind in the streaming wars. And if they could win a Golden Globe, that would certainly be big for them. And then on the flip side, if we take a look at best dramas, we have a lot going on here. We have The Crown on Netflix. That is one of the leaders for the streamer with 6 nominations, followed by Lovecraft Country, which is on HBO Max, Disney's The Mandalorian, and then Ozark and Ratchet, which are also both Netflix originals. And as I mentioned, The Crown, it's the #1 series. Award shows love them. I do think it's going to go here. A surprise could be The Mandalorian. I know that's a fan favorite, but I still think The Crown will take the lead. And then finally, for the TV category, I want to highlight best TV movies or limited series, because to me, this is the most competitive lineup. We have Hulu's Normal People, The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, Small Axe, which is an Amazon Prime series, The Undoing on HBO Max, and Unorthodox, which is another Netflix series. Now, I've only seen The Undoing and The Queen's Gambit, but I did hear that Unorthodox is really amazing. So I think we have a big stacked list here. A lot of these films also saw corresponding Best Actor and Actress nods, including Anya Taylor-Joy from The Queen's Gambit, along with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant from The Undoing. So lots of competition here. I also think it's interesting that we have Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and HBO Max. So not one streamer completely dominating this category here. And then finally, if we take a look on the movie side, once again, streamers reign supreme with Netflix in the lead with Mank, that leads with 6 nominations, along with The Trial of the Chicago 7 and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. They've both received a lot of praise. And then if we take a look at Hamilton, the musical, that did really well on Disney Plus when it premiered this summer. Disney actually saw an increase in app downloads for Disney Plus following that. So that movie also got a nod for best movie, comedy, or musical. So that's going to be one to watch. And it's going to go head to head with Amazon Prime's new Borat sequel. So that should be interesting. Amazon Prime also getting a lot of praise for One Night in Miami, which is a directorial debut from Regina King. So overall, streamers reign supreme here. There's a lot to watch, and it's certainly going to be an interesting ceremony when it airs later this month.
I have to say, I'm not all caught up on The Crown yet. I'm midway through season 3, but it is just an incredible show all around. You talked about some of these movies. It's going to be interesting to see here how big of a lift these streaming sites get from any kind of nomination or win, because oftentimes we talk about the big boost at the box office largely not open. But also some movies I've noticed have actually skipped the streaming altogether, and you can go to the site itself to purchase a ticket as you will at the movie theater to actually view the movies too. I mean, how are we looking at this overall shift, or the reality of us watching from home, how that's going to give a boost to a Netflix or some other streaming sites?
Right. And we tracked in the past what happens when movies win a Golden Globe, when they win an Oscar. And there is a pretty sizable boost, but normally that is completely tracked on the box office side. As you mentioned, the majority of these movie nominations have been released online or have not even been released at all as of yet because of this pandemic. So I think a lot of these streamers are going to be taking that into account when they report earnings. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more updates when it comes to how well certain titles did. Normally, streamers have been pretty private with that information, but now I think just like the box office, you're going to have to share that more and more. So it's certainly going to be an interesting shift in the industry. I do think this was one that was a long time coming, although I do think the pandemic really sped this up because I don't think we would have seen it this year, maybe in the next 5 to 10. But now, because of COVID-19, because box offices are shut down, because many of these movies are going to streamers, it's just a different industry. And if you take a look at some of these movie stars that are up here, we have Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant. Traditionally, they're not really on these streaming sites. They really had their moment in the sun with movies, but now the lines are blurred here when it comes to traditional releases versus these streaming sites. So I think that's going to mean more content for us as the consumer, but how it works in Hollywood and how that has a ripple effect throughout all these different production studios, that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on.
Okay, and we'll be watching. I guess the good thing now is that you see the nominations, you can just watch from home right now. So certainly a lot of people are going to be streaming these Golden Globe nominees. Thanks so much for that, Ali.